Want to make Mythic? Want to play the best decks in Explorer Best of One on MTG Arena ladder? Well, MTG Joe here, and today we're going to do a weekly meta breakdown at the top performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. This video will be for, as I mentioned, the Explorer Best of One format. We have Explorer Best of Three, Historic, Standard, Alchemy, all the formats, Best of One, Best of Three in the playlist, so you can always check out each week in terms of what's changed in terms of the meta, the best decks, everything of that nature. We get the data from what you see on screen from UntapGG, companion tool that runs alongside Arena Client, aggregates win rate data for yourself as well as others, gives us cool stats. Link is in the video description below if you want to get started. I will also put timestamps and deck lists into the video description so you can check those all out as well. And if you need gameplay demos on how these decks function, there's a whole bunch of deck list and gameplay demos in the playlist as well. So we are going to start off with looking at the meta, and then we'll look at the deck lists themselves. Meta popularity doesn't necessarily correlate to this deck is the highest win rate. Sometimes it is a case of people just like playing decks. So don't focus so much here on the April 18th through now. We're looking at popularity of the day. We do have to look Platinum to Mythic rank. Explorer meta has been a little weird just in terms of some of the data aggregation. Similarly with the data itself, we are going to actually be looking from May 9th through today. There's not a whole lot of individual data sets. There's like 4 decks where if we look at the last little bit, it's been a lot more diverse, and it kind of correlates back to what we're seeing in terms of the popularity. So the nice thing is we got a bunch of filters. We can look at it in that respect. So popularity of the day, Selesnya Angels, most popular deck, very close to that is Mono Green Devotion, a deck that typically is a little worse in Best of One because there's more aggro, but interesting to see that being a high performing deck. We have the Mono White Humans as well as Boros Convoke, two more linear aggressive decks. The Abzan Greasefang deck is a combo deck. Sacrifice in there, Cat Oven, Rakdos Midrange, and Azorius Control kind of rounding it up. So we're going to dive in and take a look. So as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at Explorer Best of One for May 9th through now. So this is basically the current meta. Since Aftermath, there's been no since released cards, so we're looking up to July 5th. So almost like 2 months worth of data. Because the format's been fairly stable in terms of deck population, it's fine to look at it this way, and it gives us a nice population. I'd rather look at 240,000 games than 22,000 when we're trying to extrapolate in terms of like performance of decks. So I apologize, we're doggy sitting, and the little guy wants to come in and hang out. But starting off with Mono Green Devotion. So this is one of the more powerful decks in Pioneer as well, built around Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. So this allows you to add mana equal to your devotion. And the core of the deck is it's a ramp deck that's looking to abuse Nykthos with untap effects like Kiora to generate a whole bunch of mana. You have devotion enablers in like Old Growth Troll, Pelucranos, your dorks, Wolf Hollow Haven, Cavalier Thorns, and your kind of payoff is going into Storm the Festivals or Karns to use a Karn board in terms of the sideboard. Now, important to remember, in Best of One, you only get access to 7-card sideboard, so you do need to be selective in terms of what you're adding to your sideboard. Make sure if you are kind of moving between Best of One and Best of Three that you do move those 7 cards that you want to the top of the sideboard itself. So in this case here, the card that they've been playing in lieu of Oath of Nissa is Invasion of Ixalan. This kind of performs a similar effect without the color fixing for Planeswalkers, but lets you dig to find your Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. Nykthos is kind of the big enabler in the deck. In terms of the Karn board, you have Graveyard Hate, Activated Ability Hate, Lifelink, and Trample helps in the aggro matchups. Filigree Silex is a way, so it's like Ratchet Bomb, and you can sacrifice it to either blow up things that your opponent controls, so good against like the go wide aggro decks. It's particularly good with Kiora because you can tap and untap. I've liked as well like Urza's Silex because you could just pump mana into it. You don't necessarily need the 3 turns. You can also with this have the alternate condition with 10 oil counters, but it does take quite a bit of work without proliferation effects. Stonebrain for combo hate, blow up artifact enchantments, and then Cityscape Leveler to just blow up any target. This blows, I might have said blow up enchantments. meant to say this blows up like small creatures. So like, I think this is a pretty reasonable sideboard. Portal to Phyrexia is another thing you could consider in the deck, and that's usually one of the kind of top ends. So from there, we go to mono white aggro, mono white humans. So it's a human tribal list, 64% win rate, and it's all about humans. So your payoffs are things like Thalia's Lieutenant that puts counters on everything and gets bigger itself with subsequent humans coming into play. Coppercoat Vanguard gives your humans additional power and ward, so taxes them in terms of removal targeting them. Plays nicely with Thalia to get you double tax. You got a bunch of 1-drops, protection, blows up artifacts and enchantments, and just gives you card advantage in the recruitment officer. And then you have your Luminarch Aspirants for more counters. Adeline goes wide, Brutal Cathari's removal, along with a couple copies of Ossification, and then Brave the Elements as both protection. And it gives you the ability to like all-out strike on your opponent. If you're playing, say, mono green, they don't have any colorless spells. Well, guess what? Protection from green, attack in, they're dead. Bunch of utility lands in Mutavault, Castle Ardenvale, and a Gonjo as well in the mana base. We then go to Azorius Spirits, so 64%. So we've seen the evolution of the mono blue spirits move towards this blue-white version. By going with white, you get access to Spell Queller. So this is a way to counter spells on the stack in a way. So you have to interact while the card is still being cast. You exile the card under Spell Queller. This gets around, can't be countered. So if your opponent tries to Supreme Verdict, well, you can get rid of it. However, when the Spell Queller leaves the battlefield, they do get the ability to cast it for free. You have Skyclave Apparition as removal as well, but the core of the deck is trying to play spirits in a tempo shell, so Rattle Chains could be protection, lets you flash in your other spirits, tap down stuff with Shacklegeist, Lord Effect with Supreme Phantom, Counterspell on a stick in Mausoleum Wanderer, and then Spectral Sailor for card advantage. You have Slip Out the Back for protection, Curious Obsession as a way to draw some cards, and then counters in Lofty Denial, as well as the Geist Snare. Mutavault's in the mana base because you're not on a snow mana base. We then go to Rakdos Sacrifice, 61% win rate. So this is predominantly a Cat Oven style deck. So the Cat Oven with Mayhem Devil, it's been tried and true. It lets you sacrifice, bring it back, like nickel and dime your opponent, get a lot of pings off, control the board. Plays really nicely with stuff like Claim the Firstborn for aggressive decks. You can steal their stuff. Furnace Rains is another thing to deal with bigger creatures. And then you have like Fable to kind of smooth out your draws, a bunch of different removal spells, card advantage, and Deadly Dispute. And then the Obnixis lets you have some card advantage and a fast clock on the top end. Each Cat Oven loop drains 1, so you get some card advantage. Similar with Mayhem Devil, you can start pinging to get some virtual card advantage with the Obnixis. And then you got some cards in the side there. We then go to Selesnya Auras. So it's a Jengantha companion deck, 60%, and it's built around having creatures that care about auras. So Light Pause, whenever you target it with an aura and it enters the battlefield, you get, whenever an aura enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you can search your library for an aura with equal or lesser mana value with a different name and then attach it to Light Pause. So this lets you tutor up some 1-ofs, have a toolbox, and just get free value that way. Whenever you cast auras, Shram draws you cards, and then Hushbringer shuts off enter the battlefield effects. Think things like Angels, any kind of the spirits, ETB, stuff of that nature, Cat Oven. You have Skrelves, as well as Selfless Saviors for protection, the Generous Visitors as a way to put counters, and then you just got a bunch of auras. So Trample and Power increase, First Strike and another creature, Ethereal Armor, and then All That Glitters gets you bonuses based on the number of additional enchantments. All That Glitters also counts artifacts. So your Skrelv's an artifact. Griff's Boom for flying, Sentinel's Eyes for vigilance and can be cast from the graveyard. Heliod's Punishment as a pseudo removal spell, and then Runa Substance for a lifelink, and then Warbriar's Blessing as a fight spell. From there, we go to Azorius Control. So this is blue-white control, and you're using basically Teferi, Wandering Emperor, Shark Typhoon, and the creature land, all the Storm Giants or Castle Ardenvale as your win conditions. The deck itself's got just literally the shade under 60% win rate. but it's got a lot of removal and a lot of counter spells. So you can kill things with like March, Fateful Absence, Temporary Lockdown, Supreme Verdict, Farewell. And then you have counter spells to interact on the stack with like Dovin's Veto, Make Disappear, Absorb, Saw It Coming, Behold the Multiverse, and Memory Deluge. You see these configurations of 3/1s between Absorb and Saw It Coming, as well as Behold and Memory Deluge, because these are cards you can foretell early, and then when you have a Teferi out, Teferi notably untaps 2 lands, so then you can cast these for 2 mana. So you're kind of putting these spells on layaway and then casting them later in the game. Based on this, you can actually play Kahira as a companion, so it's a free roll companion. So you might as well. Kahira can be a win condition in the deck as well. So kind of a cool one. Mono black midrange, 59% win rate. So this is kind of, if you have your invokes from standard, you want to get into the format. A lot of these cards are fairly standard legal, and the ones that aren't are fairly played otherwise. So like Thoughtseize is going to see a ton of play. Murderous Rider, not so much. But the core of the deck is just kind of value plays. Hand Hate, Lifelink in the Gifted Aetherborn is Death Touch. Infernal Grasp is removal. Sign in Blood draws you cards, and you can gain back the life of Shieldred, but notably this says target player. So if you have a Shieldred out, you can actually target your opponent with Sign in Blood and they take 6 damage, which is kind of funny. Lily for attacking the hand, Graveyard Trespassers for Graveyard Hate, Sorin for card advantage, and then your Invoke Despair on the top end. You can grind out card advantage with like Castle Lockwain as well as Hive the Eye Tyrant. Jumping over, we go to Boros Convoke. So this deck is really fun, but the mirrors are nutty as hell. So you got Gleeful Demolition, which you destroy an artifact you control, and you get to create 3 1/1s. You can also target your opponent's artifact, but you don't get that value. What you do is like with clue tokens from like Thraben Inspector, blood tokens, or like Ornithopters, you can make a lot of bodies. When you cast your second spell with like Clarion Spirit, you can make a lot of bodies. Same with Resolute. And what you're trying to do is get a wide board, play Knight Aaron of Eos or Venerated Loxodon with the Convoke to reduce the cost to ideally 0 mana to cast these 4/4s to get additional value. And then once you have a go wide board, you can mutate Regal Leosaur on top of another creature, and then all your other creatures get +2/1, so it's kind of like an overrun effect. Really fun deck. I like this one a lot. We then get to the aforementioned Angels, the most popular played deck, and this version here is on the 8 Cocoa effects, Kylo's Reconstruction, as well as Collect a Company to cheat and to play creatures from your library. Ideally, you want to get combinations of Bishop of Wings, Righteous Valkyrie, and Resplendent Angels to hit that 5 life per turn gain, and then you gain more life. You get another Angel and gain more life. And when you're at 27 or more life, then you get a boost to your squad, and they all become powerful, and your opponent just dies in the air. You have Speaker of Heavens that can make some angels as well. Giada gives a bonus to your other angels and kind of pseudo ramps you. And then Youthful Valkyrie gets bigger when other angels come to play. Skyclave has some removal mixed into there. Don't play Field of Ruin. This is a very odd inclusion. Your deck's got a lot of mono white, so just don't play Field of Ruin. You're not going to be a Field of Ruining kind of deck. You need to hit double white into triple white. You can't be playing colorless, and it's not the angle of attack that this deck wants to be going on. Then we go to mono red. So kind of interesting to see this. Kind of a bold choice. So this is mono red burn. This deck I can't really see consistently beating the Angels deck, but could put up a fight against the other kind of creature strategies. So it's very much burn. Got a bunch of aggressive 1-drops, get to Lava Runner, Swiss Sphere, Soulscar Mage, the Ashino. You got burn package of like Play with Fire, Spike Field, Wizard's Lightning, Skewer, and Stomp. Light up the stage for card advantage, as well as Kumano for some additional effects mixed into there. 20 land special. Can't even say 19 land. We got a Spike Field hanging out, but interesting to see mono red putting up some results nonetheless. And then lastly, Rakdos Midrange, a deck that's much better in best of 3, I find, than best of 1. Just given that you can kind of tailor your sideboard, bring in sweepers, stuff like that. But it's just a bunch of 2-for-1 value. Fable the Mirror Breaker can copy like Bonecrusher Giants, Graveyard Trespassers, Bloodtithe Harvesters. You have Misery Shadow, Kroxa kind of hanging out there, Shieldred, you kind of stonewall a lot of the aggressive decks. You got removal in Fatal Push, Abrade, as well as Heartless Act. And then you have Meathook Massacre as a sweeper. This one's interesting, kind of been out, like, they've kind of moved past Shatter Skull Smashing in a lot of the recent lists. But it's a little risky, I think, in Best of 1, just for 3 life. It takes a lot of mana to kind of pay off in this case, but maybe something to kind of consider with that. And then Unlicensed Hearse for Graveyard Hate. So the last deck, like, you'll see the occasional Greasefang pile. See if there's any Greasefang to feature. Getting pretty low. So like Greasefang's 55%, so it's something to be mindful of. It can be hated out, it's kind of hit or miss with how this deck's been performing, but if you want a Greasefang list, literally check out my Aether Hub. It's been the same list, or just slight variations week over week, but it's been consistently mid-tier at best. I usually try to focus on stuff like over 55% win rate, at least get you that sample, especially when we're looking at such a time period. We looked at 11 decks already for this. So in any case, that is it for the week. If you see in the bottom left-hand corner, we are trying to hit 10,000 subs on the channel. We're at 9,206, so we're really close, under 800. If you haven't subbed to the channel, it's free, it's easy, it helps out the growth of the channel. If you have subbed, likes and comments, as always, greatly appreciated. This is what helps keeps us going, and it helps the channel get exposure, everything like that. So greatly appreciate it if you can, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone.